To understand the French Revolution, we often think of the storming of the Bastille or the sudden, sharp fall of the guillotine. But Alexandre Dumas, in his historical romance, The Hero of the People, suggests that revolution isn't just a single event or a political shift. Instead, he paints it as a massive, unstoppable tide that pulls everyone in, from the kings in their gilded halls to the peasants in their muddy fields, and drags their private lives into the current. The story is set in 1789, a time when the air in France felt heavy with the scent of change and impending violence. Dumas splits our view between two very different worlds: the frantic, high-stakes political maneuvering of Paris and the intimate, simmering tensions of the countryside in a village called Haramont. In Paris, the old world is crumbling. King Louis XVI is trying to hold on to a power that is rapidly evaporating. He is a man portrayed not as a tyrant, but as someone overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the chaos. He spends much of his time navigating the treacherous waters of the National Assembly, trying to balance the demands of revolutionaries like Lafayette and Mirabeau against the desperate need to preserve the monarchy. There is a striking detail in the book about the king's obsession with locks. He is a man fascinated by the intricate mechanical precision of locksmiths, and Dumas uses this as a metaphor for the monarchy itself. The king is trying to pick the locks of a political system that has become too complex and too jammed to function, and no matter how much he tinkers, the mechanism is breaking. While the king struggles with the machinery of state, a more sinister kind of influence is working in the shadows. We meet Cagliostro, a sophisticated and wealthy manipulator who moves through the high society of Paris. He isn't just a society, he is a man who seems to see the future. Cagliostro is a figure of the occult, and he makes chilling predictions about what is coming. He looks at the rising hunger and the growing anger of the masses and predicts the inevitable rise of mass-scale violence. He sees the guillotine before it even becomes the symbol of the terror, treating the coming bloodshed as a mathematical certainty of history. While Paris is a whirlwind of political theory and secret conspiracies, the village of Haramont is where the revolution becomes personal. This is where we meet Ange Pitou. At the start, he is just a simple peasant boy, but he possesses a natural charisma and a hunger for something more. As the revolution gains momentum, Pitou undergoes a dramatic transformation. He becomes a leader in the local National Guard, a hero of the people, driven by a mixture of genuine revolutionary zeal and a desperate desire for glory. But Pitou's rise is complicated by his heart. He is deeply in love with Catherine, the daughter of Farmer Billet. Catherine is a resilient, grounded woman, but her affections are split. She finds herself drawn to Isidore Charny, a young nobleman. This is where the abstract politics of the revolution meet the reality of human emotion. In the village, class isn't just a concept in a pamphlet, it's the person you love and the person your family fears. The tension in Haramont reaches a breaking point when Billet, fueled by the revolutionary rhetoric of the time and a deep-seated suspicion of the nobility, attempts to murder Isidore. The violence isn't a grand battle, it's a messy, local and tragic eruption. In the aftermath of this chaos, Catherine is forced to make a choice between her loyalty to her family and her passion for Isidore. She chooses Pitou and the life he represents, fleeing into the night and leaving her home and her past in ruins. As these local dramas unfold, a much older, more private tragedy is weaving its way through the plot. We learn that Dr. Gilbert, the physician navigating the dangerous circles of Paris, has a scandalous and painful history. He was once deeply involved with the Countess Andrea, also known as the Countess Charny. Their past was defined by a love that was thwarted by the rigid social structures of the time, and they share a son, Sebastian, whom they have been separated from for years. Sebastian becomes a symbol of the innocent caught in the crossfire. Lost in the chaotic streets of Paris, the boy is eventually rescued by Jean-Paul Marat, the radical journalist who would become one of the most feared architects of the terror. This connection is significant because it places the most vulnerable characters directly into the path of the most radical elements of the revolution. The story moves toward a crescendo where the personal and the political can no longer be kept separate. The king's clandestine attempts to secure his throne through secret envoys and failed conspiracies, like those of the Marquis Favres, are overshadowed by the sheer momentum of the streets. The revolution is shifting. It is moving away from the spontaneous, almost idealistic riots of the early days and towards something much more organized, clinical, and lethal. The climax of the book shows us the reality of this shift. the noble ideals of the Declaration of the Rights of Man, the promise of liberty and equality, are increasingly being eclipsed by the squalid reality of mob violence. The characters find themselves in a world where the old certainties of divine right and nobility have been replaced by the unpredictable and often terrifying power of public opinion and the state-sanctioned machine of death. When we look at the book as a whole, several themes emerge that make it more than just a historical adventure. One of the most striking is the duality of the revolution itself. Dumas shows us that revolution is not a single movement, but two. There is the revolution of ideas, which seeks to elevate humanity, and the revolution of the streets, which often seeks to destroy it. The guillotine becomes the ultimate symbol of this duality, a machine that is both a tool of justice and an instrument of mindless slaughter. There is also a profound exploration of class and identity. Throughout the story, characters often use disguises to move between social worlds. We see the Duke appearing as a woman, or labourers attempting to mimic the mannerisms of the aristocracy. This isn't just for dramatic tension, it's Dumas's way of showing how the revolution blurred and redefined the boundaries of who people were allowed to be. In a world where the old social hierarchies were being dismantled, identity became something fluid and often dangerous to perform. We also see a constant tension between fate and agency. On one hand, you have characters like Cagliostro, who seem to view history as a predetermined path, a series of prophecies that cannot be escaped. On the other hand, you have characters like Ange Pitou and Dr. Gilbert, who are constantly trying to exert their own will, to change their circumstances, and to control their own destinies through political maneuvering or personal sacrifice. The book asks whether we are the masters of our own lives, or if we are simply being swept along by the massive, impersonal currents of history. Ultimately, The Hero of the People is a study of how massive historical shifts impact the individual soul. The characters in Dumas's world are often caught in a vice between their private desires, who they love, who they hate, and who they want to become, and the overwhelming demands of a changing world. By the end of the narrative, the world of the king and the world of the peasant have collided so violently that neither can truly exist in its old form. The old certainties are gone, replaced by a new, more unpredictable, and much more violent reality. It's a reminder that while history is often written in terms of dates and treaties, it is lived in terms of broken hearts, lost children, and the terrifying, sudden realization that the world you knew is gone forever.